Good evening. Welcome to Paranormal Lens. I'm here tonight with Jamie Widener. I'm Chad Thomas. We're co-hosting tonight because we have a special guest that I'm really excited about. How about you, Jamie?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
how was your week? How was your weekend?
Fast. Like wow, fast. I think it was Thursday at 5, and then it was like Friday happened, I think, and then it's like going to bed Sunday night. So,
hmm
damn. How about you? You might have more fun than I did.
You went to bed.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know that I did get to sleep some this weekend, but I was at the Clifton Theater,
Yeah.
Clifton 5 in Huntington. Hit a couple other sites over the weekend with a great team of guys. We had a great time. We got some filming done. I've got one clip that I'll play a little bit later. We'll work it in because I want John to see it too, because see what his input is. But it was a great weekend. I think I got to bed around 4:30, 5 o'clock both mornings. We were at the theater till about 4. To be fair, we weren't investigating the whole time because you can't start until after the movies are over. But we spent a lot of time there and it was a lot of fun. But we're here to talk with John. So should we introduce him and bring him in?
What has taken you so long? Let's do this.
All right. Well, our guest tonight is medium John Covey. He is a 24-year-old international psychic medium and paranormal investigator. He specializes in chakra healing and has a background in demonology taught under Jeremy Leonard as part of the Cajun ministry. John is also a certified level 1 and 2 Kundalini. I knew I was going to mess that up. Kundalini Reiki taught under medium Sarah Lemos. Over the last 14 years, John co-founded the Junior Investigating Paranormal Society, established the Central PA Paranormal Convention annual charity event, and has formerly held chairs within the Rift Radio Network. John has been featured on many internationally known radio shows, podcasts, and has been seen on TV shows, including the Evermore Paranormal Road Trip TV show, Ghosts in the Bayou, and Eerie Encounters on Paraflix, Roku TV, and YouTube. John has embraced his abilities, traveling on a mission to spread a little spark of positivity, healing, and love through all he meets. I was introduced to John by our mutual friend Kelly Miller at Paravation in 2022. I was just starting to explore my sensitive abilities and had a lot of questions for John, probably drove him crazy. He gave me some suggestions for developing my abilities, which I'm still working on. I also took my first class on the subject with John about a year ago. He did an online class on developing one's clair abilities. You can find him at many events throughout the year, which we're going to discuss later. Please welcome to the show, John Covey.
Hello, everybody.
Woo!
How are you doing, John?
I am good. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Long time no see.
Mm-hmm.
I see you have been incredibly busy this past weekend. Holy crap.
Yep. The Clifton. Have you done the Clifton? I know Jamie's done the Clifton.
I have not, but I have been wanting to go there so bad.
Okay. Well, Ariel would love to have anybody.
Yeah.
They're at a point where they're looking to get people in. So I know that she would love to have you come over.
Awesome.
Now we just, like I said earlier, we did this event, this thing this weekend. We filmed it. I'm not making promises, but the idea is to do a premiere at the theater on the big screen, and then maybe do an investigation afterwards. So if timing works out, maybe you could jump in with that.
That would be cool.
So anyway, so while we're talking about the Clifton, do you want me to play this clip now? It's about 2 minutes.
I have been dying to hear, because I know that you had, put a couple teasers out there. So I'm dying to hear what happened.
For the whole weekend. It's a lot. Well, this is just one short little clip, but so let me play this and see what you pick up, and it's a tripwire clip, so, and flashlight. So
okay,
I'm just gonna play it, and we'll be on the side, so I want to see everybody's reaction. So you only light the flashlight up when I get to the number that you currently are. Okay, thank you. So let's start again. Are you 5? Okay, turn the flashlight off. Turn the flashlight off, please. So you're 5 years old. You're not 6, correct? Are you 6? All right. So you're 5. Do you like hanging out with your mom in the space? Okay. Can you turn the flashlight off, please? Go ahead and turn the flashlight off. Thank you so much. Did you find the colored lights? Do you like the colored lights? Uh-huh. So, I mean, that at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're by yourself in a theater, it's an interesting experience. But yeah, I was getting tripwire hits for a while. We went back in with another group a little later, nothing. So it was like, because Chris Mendez wanted to see the flashlight. He never really worked with a flashlight and had that experience. It wouldn't go off once.
Wow.
But we had been in there earlier with Scotty, and he felt that he was sensing a like a fortune teller who was there, who had a young child with her, and the child kept like wanting to hide in its mother's skirt, and it was just an interesting experience. The next night we were there, it was like a whole different time period. We were dealing, and we got information showing information pointing to the 1950s, whereas this was like the late 1800s. So it's just weird how this theater was like, tonight it's this, and then tomorrow night it's this, and all the spaces. There's 5 theaters in there. All the spaces were different the second night. So it's a great place to investigate, and you never get the same thing twice, is what I've been told about it.
Interesting.
So,
as I'm watching that now, I don't know anything other than, of course, where it's at. I don't know any of the history or anything. I don't like to look at the history of locations, because if I've never been there, it'd be cool to kind of use me as like the bait, put me in there and just see what I get.
Right.
Do you know if there was a fire in the theater? Because as I'm watching that, it's like I got this burning sensation, almost like, when you smoke, when you breathe in smoke, and then I kept feeling like my ears, like I was going deaf.
Right.
Like there was something going on that, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously I was trying to focus on the video, but that's, I don't know if you saw me, I'm looking up, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Because I felt it.
Yes, there were 3 fires in the building.
Okay.
And actually, it was the one fire was Huntington's biggest fire ever.
Oh, wow.
So.
Hi, Stacey. I will see you this weekend.
So yeah. So yes, you're right on the money with that one. So.
Okay.
So yeah, I would definitely love to get over it with you, John, because it was Scott's first time through the theater as well, and he picked up on a bunch of things with no information, and it was just like Ariel, who running the paranormal side of things, just kept looking at her friend and like, how does he know this? This is stuff that people have never been told. Like, it was interesting. Yeah.
And see, to me, now you had mentioned, and just to kind of give my perspective on, a lot of times people experience different things going to locations, not just, of course, the Clifton, but anywhere else.
Right.
some people have experiences with potential children versus others. And I think it comes down to who you are as a person, your energy of what you put out. Um, a lot of times I have female energies and children interact with me on an investigation rather than more masculine energies. And I think that comes down to the nurturing side of it. You and I also being, very intuitive, especially feelers. Um, they will be almost like, I hate to say it, it's like you are like a bug zapper. Different things will come at you, different energies will come at you because it's oftentimes easier. And so, for example, you compare, someone who, potentially has been in the military, they may have, that sort of more rigid, that, regimented sort of, personality. And it's nothing wrong with that. I feel that it's based on the energy of who you are as a physical person interacting with the other side. So they might become more comfortable than the other energy. Whereas on the flip side, another more, I want to say like stubborn, but more stern energy might be attracted more to that regimented sort of, person. So I think that could be why, you experience that versus anybody else. Plus being alone. I mean, hey, it's crazy.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. So that sort of leads us into why we wanted to talk to you tonight, mediumship. So do you want to start at the beginning? How you got started in this? Because you were 14.
I was actually, my first experience was when I was 8.
Okay.
My first time beginning in the field, trying to get started in the field and so on, was when I was 10 years old.
Okay.
My first experience was in my, of course, my old home, my childhood home. It was an old farmhouse. It was built in the 1800s, had a lot of history to it, a lot of undocumented history to it, that over the years, progressing through and experiencing and, doing what I do and sensing what I, sense through the different places. I learned a lot about that place, but my experience was with the little girl in the house. Very late at night, I had to get up to use the restroom. My brother and I shared a bedroom at the time. So I was, of course, on the top bunk. The younger brother gets a top bunk. And so went to go use the restroom. Everybody's asleep. There are no TVs on. I, of course, was, worried that I was going to get in trouble being, awake at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
All I remember is I made the slightest bit of noise in the bathroom and the bathroom door slammed shut. So, of course, 8 years old, scared to no end because you don't know what or who did that to you, whether somebody's playing a prank on you or not. I finish up and I go back into, my bedroom. I'm climbing up the ladder to get on the top bunk, and all I hear from my doorway is a very loud little girl's giggle. Scared the bejesus out of me, enough to where my mom had jumped out of bed, came storming in, is like, what is going on? And I'm like hyperventilating, like it scared me so much. But then you fast forward after that experience, feeling what I feel a lot more in the house, understanding that I'm not alone and I'm not, crazy. I was like, okay, how did that happen? Nobody was awake. TVs weren't on. There was nobody outside because everybody, of course, was asleep at that time. No little girl would be awake at that time. And so I started doing research, searching places around, ghosts and whatever. And my mom, of course, was big into Ghost Hunters when that came out, the original Ghost Hunters. And, one night I clearly remember we were sitting on the couch. She was actually watching the show. And I had asked her, I said, do you think our house could be haunted? And she's like, I'm glad that you asked. So from then on, it branched into us learning more about the home, learning more about what she experienced as a child intuitively. And then what I was experiencing correlated a lot with what she was getting when she was my age at the time.
Right.
And that's where we morphed into, well, maybe we can actually form a team of other, I hate to say it, but other teens my age, and try to come together to create something that, could set a new trend.
Right.
When we talked about it, I said that my goal in doing this team, the Junior Investigating Paranormal Society, which is what it is now, my goal with it was to go through and help other people and educate other people and give them the experience to know that, one, they're not crazy. I think that's really important. And then number two, if there's any way at the time that we could help, we'll try to do our best in order to do that, or at least bring in individuals to do that and show that not only can adults do this, but if teens and younger kids are interested in it and wanting to learn, they can do that. And that's what really compelled us into the notoriety of the team and, becoming the first national organization that was created and ran by teens in the US. It was a really cool experience. So that's, kind of where that morphed into.
Cool. And I think that's great because we all know that the younger you are, the more your abilities are open because you haven't shut them down and you haven't been told that there's something wrong, or,
Right.
you're open to that. And so I think that's great.
Yeah.
So
well, I have a quick question then. So bear with me on this because it might take me a minute. I'll land as quickly as I can though.
Before you do that, hey, if you have any questions for John, throw them in the comments. Yeah, that way we can keep things going. So go ahead, Jamie.
Hi, Andy.
Hey, Andy. The thing we always see when we do public investigation, or the question we get a lot more so, and then we see is parents asking if they can bring their kids.
Yeah.
So, in that, obviously, I think and you mentioned ghost hunters, like access to stuff on TV is extraordinary now, and not just TV, but all the media, outlets. So, what is there too young of an age for a kid to come to an investigation? And I asked this question of us as well, because I have some reservations. We have teenagers, in our family, so it's kind of a concern for me, like to a degree, for liability. Number one, and obviously we want everybody to be safe, and it's nothing against an age of anyone, whether they're old, young, whatever. Physically ability, to climb the stairs at our brewery, the stuff. There's some physical things that are challenging, but it's not necessarily about anything other than just safety and the concept of just what could happen, and people are bumping around in the dark. And even more to the point, we've done for a couple years now. We didn't do it last year, I believe, but we have a class that we have called Boo Crew, which is trying to teach youth how to be paranormal investigators. So we have a couple sessions of it. At the end, you get a certificate. You get a little bit more of a thing, than just like, hey, you're done. And obviously they get to investigate, learn skills, trades, and tactics that we all do, the common stuff in the field. And then they they can do their own investigation out of it. So I'm saying all that to say, is there a thought to a minimum, or is it really a discretionary thing in the household that the kids are coming from?
In my opinion, I think number one, it depends on the location. I think that no kid, and I say kid, no teenager or even kid under the age of 13 should be in a location, well, number one, by themselves because of, physical safety reasons, even sometimes with going into what's like a cemetery. A lot of people, go there, they start there. That's where I started. I started with a group of people. My first investigation was at a cemetery, and I was 10 years old. I think it really is the discretion of how responsible and how, how they'll interact. If you know that your child will get very scared very easily because, fear of the unknown, the spookiness of at night, I think that, it really is a discretion of, the person. As far as a minimum with the public investigations that I have organized, we did one at a library that's not too far from where I live. And I think the youngest that we had was 6. So but of course, the little girl had her mom with her. You know, as long as it's as a controlled environment, I'd say anywhere from 6 to 8 would be my personal recommendation as youngest.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. There's a comment here from Amanda. I think it kind of ties to this exactly. Then, and I, anybody's been. I'm going to say this. Anybody who's in the Crescent can tell me about it, but from the stories I have yet to make it. But the understanding I have is, it's a bit of a dilapidated facility. It's vast. It's easy to get turned around. So a lot of things that could go south quickly for liability side.
Yeah.
But
physically it's dangerous, and then paranormally it's not.
It's active, right?
It's active and not necessarily the warmest of spirits. So
right, and it had a harsh, it was a harsh place to be as well. So I can understand that. Right. I take, as Amanda mentioned, Booby's Brewery, our home base, is a pretty calm location, active, but yet a familia family, whatever.
Yeah.
Atmosphere to it, because it is the family there, and White Hill as well. I mean, White Hill is just White Hill. It's such a great place. And it has its charm as an old property as well, and a cool place to go. Nothing we've done several times there, and it's never felt heavy or harsh as well. So I guess that has a lot to do with it too. So
okay. So Kirsten has a question for you. We'll throw it up here. Kirsten's a member of our team, so thanks for coming on tonight, Kirsten. So
if you are sensitive, what are some ways to help expand those abilities? Ooh. Well, my number one thing, Chad, when you took my class, so the class that I taught was an introductory class. It was an introduction to the clairs. So as an intuitive, I feel, in my personal opinion, everybody has intuitive abilities. And the best way that I can say this is, if you've ever had this gut feeling that something was going to happen, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. My mom was actually explaining this earlier tonight about staying in the one lane, driving home. Your gut instinct is intuition. Now, the way on how you break it down are through your 4 main clairs, which are clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, and clairaudience. My brain, sorry. Clairaudience. 2 of which, clairvoyance and clairsentience, that's what I am. Seer and a feeler. Others, claircognizance, that's to know. And then clairaudience, of course, to hear. So it really breaks down to understanding where you are on an intuitive level. How do you interact based on, do you see things? Do you see lights? Do you see different scenarios? If you are in a location, can you kind of expand out and see the location in your eye? And I'm going to say here, in your mind, can you visualize that? Or in the flip side, claircognizance, do you oftentimes find yourself, your brain just doesn't shut off, or you're a very structured person, you like informational sort of, documentaries and such. It's breaking down to understand where you can start, and usually you'll have 2 top clairs. And Chad, I don't remember which ones were yours. Which ones are yours?
Clairsentience and claircognizance.
Okay. Now, clairsentience, of course, is to feel. So my empaths out there, if you're an empath, heart the video, heart the live. If you are a deep feeler, if you really focus in on what you feel, if you feel emotions a lot deeper than some other people, that's a clear sign that you could be an empath, a clairsentient. All this being said, I think that the number one tool is finding an individual that you can trust. And if you jive really well with a person, you find that, they're really down to earth, they're really working together well on, getting the point across to be understood very clearly. And it feels like it's just meant to be. That's usually where you start. And for me, of course, being taught by medium Sarah Lemos, when we started the class, we had a similar introduction where we broke down our players. We broke down understanding where we are, what we're experiencing, and how to use that moving forward. It's a step-by-step process. So you don't just jump right in and you start using your psychic or mediumship abilities right away.
Right.
Helping out clients or an investigation. It takes time, and I feel no matter who you are, where you are, how old you are, everybody is still learning, including obviously myself. I mean, it's important.
The other thing that you stressed at the beginning, like when you're very starting, is grounding is very important to do multiple times a day.
Absolutely.
And doing that and then finding a time to do meditation. 15-20 minutes of meditation will really help develop. And that's one thing that I'm guilty of not taking the time to do every day.
Listen, I was telling everybody to do that. I am the biggest hypocrite with that because I sometimes don't. I really have a hard time with that myself. But all in all, no matter if you're grounding down, you're meditating, you're sitting with oneself, one thing that I really stressed, especially in the course, was honoring yourself. And sometimes in our regular everyday lives, we get so focused in, okay, I got to get this done and this done and this done. I got to be here, or I got to go to work, and then I got to get this done. And then when you come home, then you think about all this, and this. And sometimes you don't come back to reality and say, I'm human. What? This is weird. I'm okay. So maybe I need to relax a little bit and come back to myself and ask, John, how am I feeling today? How am I doing? And a lot of times we don't ask ourselves that. And then sometimes when you do, oftentimes it sometimes makes us feel sad, because we're like, oh my gosh, I'm sacrificing so much of my own physical, mental, emotional, psychological health for all these things that if I just took 5 minutes out of my day to worry about myself and to take care of myself through meditation, just doing that daily check-in, it's those small steps. I saw a post on Facebook earlier today while I was on break. It was talking about, it takes, you take, I don't know the numbers. If you take 100 walks in a year, that you ran 7 marathons, or
I saw this, yeah.
So it's those small steps that really seem redundant, but over time they do make a difference. So I think that's really, really the key part, is just honoring yourself and pay attention to yourself and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing today? And then go from there.
Wow.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It really does. It's on that point, we all have technology, at our wrists anymore. And, realizing how much in intentionalness I walk, I walk on lunch break, I walk in the evening, I have a dog, I walk my dog, all that stuff. And I find myself putting 30 to 40 miles on every week. And I'm like, wow, but I realize if you stop and take the break of it all, 40 minutes here, half an hour there, every day you walk at a pace on purpose, you're walking with intention, you cover a lot of ground, and that is, to me, that's valuable time. At work, it's the time to separate. I can have lunch at my desk and then take the time to get out of the building, and just break off from it, instead of having to go to the break room, which is still there, and then people coming and going, and everybody wants to engage with you. You never get the separation. You never get the break, the mental break that it's supposed to be. And having the intentionality of doing something for yourself, regardless of what it may be, that, as long as it's a net positive, I think so. We can do some bad things too, right? But, doing that intentional stuff daily, even just the 5 days a week that we traditionally work, you will see net results that are positive for you and your psyche and your body. It's fantastic. So, little things. You're right. Little things matter.
So, yeah.
And I think that now everybody, especially during the winter months, we have that like seasonal depression and stuff. We get really down because, it's not as sunny. It's always gloomy. It's overcast, at least here in Pennsylvania. It's always doom and gloom up here. And, the past couple of days have just been so beautiful. And I was having a conversation today with multiple people, and Amanda Tashner here in the comments. We were discussing about how, with the sun, I, for some reason, am just so motivated. I'm ready to get stuff done. I'm ready to get things rolling. I feel so much better. And then it's like that we have an overcast to sort in. I'm just like, oh. But I think that now that we're starting to get out of the doom and gloom of winter, and we're starting to branch into spring. Hopefully Phil was right and it was an early spring.
It's daylight when you leave work.
Right? Yep. I think that's the most exciting part now.
Yeah.
I think that if we do implement those small changes, we will see a huge difference in our overall inner happiness, by the time that June hits. So, yeah.
So let's jump to another question. What was the most memorable place you investigated? And you started to off air earlier. You started to go there, and I was like, "Oh, let's hold on." So, do you have a place?
I will say, I see a lot, and I hear a lot about, people talk about, what's your favorite location? A lot of people ask too, and I think every location has their own specific thing that gives you an experience that makes it different than others. As far as my most experienced, my most iconic, most memorable, it is actually the home that I was talking about before we went live. Years ago, the team that I was mentored with when I first started getting more involved on the investigative side around 2012 to 2014, they had a live surveillance feed at a farmhouse near Montoursville, PA. It's a Snyder farmhouse. This home, so much history, ties to the Underground Railroad, ties to, so much lineage, I should say, within that family, that there is just all encompassed into this property. Of course, at the time, I did not know that going in. But that still, to this day, I have been to West Virginia State Penitentiary. I have been to Pennhurst. I have been to many iconic locations. I feel, as far as getting intelligent replies, audio, video evidence, and EMF fluctuations with a no power source home, that takes the cake. There's so many experiences that honestly I probably could write a book about it, or at least do a whole spiel on it. But that place is so rich in history, and the reason why I mentioned about the other team specifically is because they had a 24/7 live feed going right from their surveillance system at the location to their website. And so anybody can go and watch this surveillance feed. And there were a lot of times where they would catch orbs. Of course, orbs, everybody has their own opinion on orbs. You would hear voices. You would hear certain things going on. You'd hear footsteps. But the part that really, really took the cake on that, there was a thunderstorm happening one evening, and the surveillance feed was going, and the old, they called it the old summer. No. They called the main house, I think it was a slave quarters in the back. It was in the living room. There was a stairwell that went right up to the second floor, and it was right next to the basement doorway. You see in the video, and I'll have to share it to you so you can share it on a live later on, or if I come back on here, I'll send you the videos. You see the flash of lightning. You see a silhouette of a woman in a dress standing, looking out the window at the bottom of the stairwell. A couple seconds go by. You see another flash of lightning. Gone. She is gone. And when you can see her, like, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it. When you see the video, you can see right through her, because you can see the windowsill right through the silhouette. nobody was there. It got to the point where the other team, they had cops sent out because they thought it was trespassing. The team leader called the owner of the home to go and, because it was Mr. Snyder who still owned the property at the time, the youngest descendant. And like, it was a huge thing. It was huge. But as far as that goes, the house was built in 1851. So much happened on the land. There was an Indian massacre that happened on the land too. There's a family cemetery that's out in the cornfield. That's still, a running farm right now. There's just so much that goes into it, and I wish I could go back in and investigate it, but financially, it was a burden on, Mr. Snyder. He had to sell it, and it's the outside is still the farmhouse, but the interior are now apartments.
Oh,
see.
So, if it ever goes up for rent, I will rent it out just to investigate it.
Right.
Well, that ties to Todd and Carmela's question. Do you think locations are not on the map, so to speak, have a higher level of activity due to spirits happy that someone is there to communicate with them?
In my opinion, I think, again, it depends. I think it depends on the location and the residual energy that's inside. Because obviously, there are two different types of hauntings. You have residual and intelligent. I think that as far as residual, if there are less people there, a lot of times you'll have that loop playing over more often than enough. Now, teams start to go in there if there's an intelligent, spirit there that's really wanting to talk and really wanting to reach out, then you're going to want to have more people go in there. In my opinion, I've had better luck with places that are kind of not on the map as far as receiving solidified evidence of things. But that's just my opinion. I think, again, it really also just ultimately depends on the location, the history, and how it affects the residual versus intelligent.
That's something we ran into this weekend. Is the sensitives who were there felt like once the spirits realized that there was someone who could pick up what they were putting down.
Yeah,
things started to flow a lot. Like things came through more quickly once that was like, oh, you're understanding this. And we got a lot more things. We got a lot of EVPs. We got a lot of so yeah, I think once that understanding of communication is there, it grows. So
it's almost like speaking like a foreign language in a way. It's like, you're trying to understand and, you're trying to communicate in a spirit's perspective. You're doing as much as you can. That's why you hear footsteps. That's why you hear noises. That's why you hear singing. That's why you hear certain noises where you see certain things. But then it's like when somebody comes in and they also speak, this is going to be a new thing, I'll bet you. When they speak spirit language, what we can call that, phantomish. We'll call it phantomish. Not a term. I'm just joking around here. You have those, like you mentioned, those who can speak that phantomish sort of language. It's because you're bridging from exactly the communication. Hi, Athena. Hope you're doing well. It's like, oh my gosh, like I've been dying to see this, to talk to you, it's that like I finally feel heard. And if you think that also spirits, that energy, if you think they also don't carry those emotions that they had in life on the other side, you're crazy.
Oh yeah, I know they do. I know they do. So Heather had a comment here. It wasn't really a question, but I feel like you can have some guidance for her. We'll throw that up. Heather is a sensitive that works with us quite often. She's an honorary member of our team.
Yep.
But here, I have a very chaotic life. I purposely close myself down so it doesn't interrupt my day. When I relax and open up, it just pours in. I'm too scared to meditate.
One of the biggest things that I would suggest is there are different meditations that certain people will follow. One of the biggest challenges that many people face is meeting and discussing and communicating with their guides. There are various meditations that you can do in order to meet your guides. But one thing that I have a really good, well, this is actually what Sarah taught me. Okay. When we first communicated with our guides and we first established, wanting to, communicate, and, we saw who they were, they showed themselves to us basically. What you do is you create this agreement with them. And a lot of times for me personally, I do this with every event that I go to. I do this before every reading that I do. I call it my little spiel. I always go through and I say, I can do it live if you'd like me to. I call on to them and I say, guides and angels, I ask you please join me at this time as I use my gifts to connect with those, in this reference, those tonight on the show. I ask you please allow all information to come in clear, accurate, precise, to be understood clearly with love and light only. In doing so, I then call out, because during this meditation, you ask them for their name. I have two main guides. I have Zeke, who is kind of like my, I put it blunt, like a knight in shining armor. He's the protector. He's the one who, protects me against anything that's negative. Mm-hmm. And then I have Brianna, who is my sarcastic, but really down to earth guide. She's very blunt. She'll tell you how it is, and so be it. So you have Brianna and Zeke. So I will call onto them, and I will see them. Literally, I'll see her over here, and then I will see him over here. Almost like like the good and the bad, thing, like how they had in the cartoons. Obviously not on my shoulders; they're just standing here. With this, I ask if I'm going to do a meditation, for example, I ask that they please protect me and only allow certain things to come in when it is that time. One of the other things I had mentioned before, I think I actually mentioned it in the class. When I was just starting out wanting to expand on my abilities, my home, being the filled with the history that it was and filled with the spirits that it had, I would get bombarded at night. I wouldn't be allowed to sleep. I would not be allowed to, really just have a calm moment, because I would constantly getting these, they call these downloads of information. I don't know how this happened, but outside my then bedroom was a streetlight, and I have blinds in there, bright. One of the pieces broke in the blinds, and at night when you look, the light shone right through the window, straight down, and there was a perfect beam of light at the literal threshold on the floor of my door. And so at the time I said, okay, my guides and anything else, when this light is on and that light is shining in on that floor and I am in this room, no spirit may have communication with me. This is where I'm setting my boundary up. If you don't set up some kind of boundary, you're always going to receive those downloads. You're always going to receive that information. And that's the best thing that I could recommend, is trying to connect with your guides and then establishing, okay, this is when I'm ready to work. When I give my spiel, it's setting my intention. I know, right? I'm setting my intention to say, I am ready to work. I am ready to receive information. Mm-hmm. And so that's where that clear communication goes in. And sometimes, people are like, well, how will they know I'm actually ready? Tell them.
Yeah. I think that's the key, is even when you're meditating, even if you don't know if you're intuitive or have developed your clairs, even when meditating, set that intention that mm-hmm. I want to open up. I want to meet you're my guides. It's just, that's such an important part of it. Or set the intention that I just need to clear my mind. I don't want anything. And by saying that, you're creating that space for yourself. So
it's combining the law of attraction and law of manifestation into one. And so if you are saying, you know, these are what I'm asking, you are putting that energy out to get it back. And so that's where the attraction comes in. But then if you can also sit there and then visualize yourself in a safe space, in the ability of almost like you're putting yourself, I use this analogy for a friend of mine. If you have trouble with this, putting yourself into a snow globe, you're sitting in this, and I joke around talking about the one Pixar thing, little Pixar short about the snowman in the snow globe. Imagine yourself, you are in that snow globe. If you're doing your regular daily thing at work, you're sitting at your desk, you're doing your job. If you can take that time to just sit there and manifest it, even if you're not doing the meditation right then and there, you're putting that out and you're allowing yourself to be surrounded in that safe space to where nothing can penetrate through that glass, nothing can penetrate through that bubble. So when you finally do go into your snow globe, you will be able to fully relax and fully go in there. It all comes down to your intention, the energy at the time, and how relaxed you can be.
Yeah, I think Stacy makes a good point here. If we have a hard time setting boundaries, and I think she means physically, as a human, setting boundaries with spirits are going to be difficult. So you have to learn that skill.
Right.
Not trying to put words in your mouth, Stacy. I hope that's what you meant. But it's like, I have a hard time setting boundaries. I know that. So to set them with the spirits is even more difficult. So, and then here's Heather's follow up. And yes, both her kids also have abilities. So I think, again, it's just setting that intention, setting that safe space, setting those boundaries. And you can set the boundaries on your whole house if that's
Absolutely
what you want to do, and just say that this is a space that we don't want to communicate in. It's like not investigating in your own home. You don't, you want that safe space, so just put it out there.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
So, and thanks for the confirmation, Stacy. Appreciate that. I'm going to jump back to a question from Susan for you, John.
How often do you walk into a building or come in contact with someone and you get a spirit connection or attachment? Ooh. This, what I will say, for those who are really, really, really involved and really connected with spirit, it depends on what boundaries you set, like we were just talking about. So for me, it's not like, if I may, no disrespect, nothing like that. For me as a medium, it's not like seeing the show Long Island Medium, where you walk in and you're constantly like, I have to stop because I have to read you, blah, 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 blah. I'm feeling this spirit, or I'm feeling this loved one around you. It's not like that. A lot of times I try, because of course, I'm in retail with the comic book store. I deal with communication all the time with the events. And so, for me, it also comes down to my guides understanding where I'm at on an intuitive level. Now, a lot of times, if I am more relaxed and it's a slower day at work and there is somebody that comes in, there have been a couple times where I have had to say, I hate to ask you because you really don't know who I am, but did your grandfather pass away and he had a heart attack? And he also had this really obsession with he had this vehicle, like a 67 Chevelle or something like that. And it's those sorts of things where I also don't want to come across like I'm creepy, because in today's day and age, there are so many things like that. But as far as it goes with sometimes feeling the connection, sometimes feeling them, it does happen. A lot of times it really just depends also on the person. Because there are other times where I even say to the shop owner, I'm like, because they know what I do. They're very supportive of what I do. And there are a lot of times where I'll be like, their mom was with them today. And I can't say anything because it's all paying attention to body language. It's paying attention to the psychological aspects of who they are as a person before even branching out into the spiritual world. So it's a constant battle between the two. As far as attachments go, attachments, in my opinion, are easier to pick up on. I feel a lot of times you have to pay attention. If you are able to focus and read auras and doing Reiki, you will be able to pick up on that very well. I personally feel that if somebody has an attachment, it will not only affect them on a spiritual level, it'll affect them on a physical, psychological, mental, and emotional level. You can just see it. And if think about this, when you go into a grocery store, do this later on this week. We're not judging people. This is different. It's paying attention to see, okay, if you were to describe a person as being light or dark, if you were to look at a person and you were to say, okay, I feel this is, it's the same thing about when you walk into a place, a location, and you walk into a room and it feels loving. To me, a loving feeling is a mother-like energy. And so it's like, how would you describe it how would it feel to you? What word do you hear? If you were to look at them and say, what word comes to mind? That's you're using your clairs to kind of read, but you're not outwardly reading to get that back, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something to try.
So here's a follow-up from Heather's husband on the setting a safe space.
Okay. There you go.
John, I have a question that we didn't share in advance, and it comes here. It comes to me here as a good place to ask it. So, what would you say is the most common misconception associated with mediumship? People think you can just walk up and you put a hand up and all of a sudden you can tell everything ever was about them. There's so many stereotypes, right?
There are so many stereotypes.
Yeah,
I think that as far as it goes with mediumship, because there's psychic information and there's mediumship. Every medium is a psychic, but not every psychic is a medium. And so it comes down to, again, who you are as a person. For me, I feel like a lot of what the media portrays, and I'll just again use Long Island Medium as a reference. I think a lot of people, because they see that, because Teresa's been doing that show for so long, that people think that that's what it's always like, and it's really not. A lot of questions I get asked are, do you actually see dead, like if there's a dead person, if there's a dead loved one that's with somebody, do you see them literally standing right there, like with your eyes? And the best way I compare it to, I don't see them as if I see okay, I have my black tourmaline right here. Okay. I see this here with my physical eyes. Now, you see the black tourmaline. I'm going to put the black tourmaline down. But if I were to ask you, can you still picture and see the black tourmaline and imagine it standing like it has legs? Imagine it. I have it here in front of my face. You can still see that piece of black tourmaline. Sure. That's how it is. So I don't see a loved one. I don't see a spirit. I don't see them as if I see this black tourmaline right here on my desk. I see it as if they were standing there, and it's almost like people talk about the vision. You see like that movie in your head. Those are for situations. Those are for when I'm seeing memories playing back. But as far as seeing, it's not like I'm seeing actual objects right there. That's a common question that I get a lot. But the misconception with the stereotypes is you don't see dead people all the time attached to people, and you don't need to read people all the time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Absolutely.
One more follow up from Heather, then I want to go to another question that we had up there.
Crazy lady, but most times I just feel that the person will see that well. Yeah, I mean, it really depends. And so one of the hardest parts I will say is when you receive a download, quote unquote, you have information that just comes on so strong that you don't want to upset someone. You don't want to seem like the crazy lady, how she explained it. You don't want to have somebody have like this bad experience and to think that you're, something like this. But a lot of times it comes down to paying attention to their body language, paying attention to their aura, and again, if they feel light or dark, and then taking that next step on, okay, is this a safe and controlled space to where I can allow this connection to come through? That's one of the most challenging pieces. That's why you see a lot of psychics and a lot of mediums do appointment readings. That's honestly why I do the things that I do. As far as, if readings and such, it's a controlled environment where I can also focus and not have outside energies and outside things affect what it is that I'm getting, because a lot of times we can either our own psyche can step in the way of the information, or B, other outside things can really take our focus in it, then we lose it because that connection gets disconnected. It gets staticky, like a radio station in a car. If you don't have that clear, connection, it'll come in bits and pieces. You're still getting the information, but it may seem misconstrued or misunderstood a little bit.
The last thing you want to do is relay partial information.
Absolutely. Yeah. You want to answer questions for people, not leave people with more questions.
Yeah.
So in a paranormal investigation like we have at the brewery, we're there monthly, if not every other week. We know the history. We know the activity. And the challenge is, sharing enough of that to set the stage for the evening, what the expectation could be, who you could come in contact with without saying you are going to come in contact with someone, because we don't know, obviously. And there's this tipping point of, too much, not enough. And I think, we're always on one side or the other, I guess. I like to think we're perfectly down the middle. And that's not possible.
Right.
So
right.
It goes to the spirit, pun intended, perhaps the spirit of this, where, you can lead someone to something that, and they're going to believe what they want, right? Because they're going to associate it to their own situation in life, whatever their dynamic is. So there is a caution to all of this, regardless of how we're presenting it. But where is, in your opinion, where is your line to this? What's the safe end of it? What's going too far, perhaps?
I think if it comes down to, and I hate to say it, it comes down to our own ego. And it's not the egotistical type of ego. This is when I mentioned before about we're getting in the way of the information. It comes down to, on an investigation aspect, it's always great to use your own, because we talk about, a lot of investigators talk about, your best tool is yourself. Your best tool is to focus in on what you're experiencing at that direct moment. And then having someone who focuses in more on the sensitive topic or even the more metaphysical topic, it's always a good thing to do. But then you also have the counterpart where it's very important to also include the scientific part and the historical part, because in order to have a complete understanding, to figure out and have a good dynamic, it all comes down to what people bring to the table. And as long as people can remain open to the various ideas, various ideology of what they're bringing, historical, metaphysical, intuitive, scientific, all of those can come together and mesh very well. You will have a team that works, and they build such a strong bond, and it's a respect. As long as you can take your own self, your own bias, even if, let's say, and I'm not this way, but let's say, a medium who's not really too keen on the scientific part, they focus, they're doing their thing. I'm going to focus on that, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
If you close your mind to that possibility, and you close your mind to not just scientific, but even historical or what have you, you're going to butt heads. You're going to have jarring personalities, and that's not conducive to what you're trying to do. And ultimately, that's where you see a lot of, tension build within teams, because everybody is really passionate about what they bring to the table, but it's taking, again, your own self out of the equation to understand the other side, understand the other person, and saying, okay, if the medium is experiencing this on for what they do, which I don't think that a medium should be the one. You see a lot of times, especially on TV, for example, it seems like the medium is the one that's always leading the show, and I don't think that's the case. I will say that with Sarah's new show, Ghost Town Terror, she did, like, they do a really great dynamic of not, they use her information that she gets, but they don't prioritize that 100%. They allow that to feed, and they use the scientific research and the historical part to really validate each other with it, because that's what we're trying to do, and that's how you expand things much further.
Well, I think that's the important part of any investigation is, one piece of information is great, two pieces of information, cool, three pieces of information, we're on to something. The more you get, the better you are. So
yeah.
I'm going to go to another question that Amanda had a little bit earlier. I know do you have time, John? Because I know we're already at an hour, believe it or not. It seems like 5 minutes, and here we are an hour later.
Let's keep rolling.
Yeah. I know you're not a doctor, but what are your thoughts on this? And I have input on this one.
So how do you feel about people with abilities being put on antipsychotics and the meds possibly dampening such abilities? Obviously, this is where I'm in the middle, but I will also share my opinion. I will say that we have a lot of natural remedies that we can do to help our own, situations. Obviously, I'm not a licensed professional. I don't, claim that I am. I don't, do that. I don't, recommend anything that I haven't tried myself. I think that with today's society and how things used to be a little bit too, about 40, 50 years ago, it was always, something seems wrong, I'm going to go to the doctor. Okay, there's, this medication. If it helps, great. I'm willing to try this. And then a lot of times, over time, whenever something was wrong, we went to the doctor. They gave us medication. We took it because the doctor said so, and we value that the doctor is 100% right, and what they prescribed it. They know what they're talking about. I personally, obviously, I'm not a doctor, but I think that the doctor and any medication that you will take is taking 1 out of 10 people. Obviously, there's more, but using this as an example, you have 1 out of 10 people, and you take 10 people, you find the average on how it affects everybody, and that's the medication that you have. And so I can take, like, for example, okay, I was dealing with a migraine, a really bad one actually, this past weekend. And so normally if I just have a regular headache, I will take Advil. I don't know obviously the chemical, makeups of Advil, but I knew that wasn't going to work for this migraine. And so I took Excedrin because, that's what everybody tells you to do, and this and the other. It didn't work. And so what I'm getting at is, whether it's prescribed, over the counter, what have you, in my opinion, everybody's body and everybody's chemical makeup can be different. Obviously, they're the same components. We're all human. We all have our own scientific parts that really obviously are documented. But one medication isn't going to help the next person, isn't going to help the next person. You might have similarities, but it's not going to be exactly what each person will experience. From an intuitive standpoint, I do feel that just because of seeing it firsthand with not myself, but with other individuals who I care so deeply about, I feel that antidepressants, anxiety medications will really affect your psyche in the point of receiving intuitive information. And a lot of times it comes down to empaths, especially their sentience, especially. They feel things on such a deep level. They're always feeling other people's energies, objects, all this different energy. And it can get very overwhelming. And that's where anxiety starts to build because they don't know where this energy is coming from, but it's like their heartbeat is really fast. They feel all shaky. They feel this and the other. And so when you don't know what's wrong, you go to the doctor and you get prescribed something to help calm and race your heart, to calm your heart down, to calm things down for you. And sometimes, and this is just my opinion, a lot of times I see people become zombies because it's almost like it's making them numb.
Yeah.
And so
instead of taking that high and that low valley, which is what you just want to take, that you're getting compressed.
Yep.
And it's taking almost too much. So
right.
Some feedback I have on this, I have ADHD, and who doesn't, but I was diagnosed with ADHD and was taking a medication for it and was feeling okay with it until I went away for a weekend and forgot to take my medication with me. So I didn't take it for a weekend, and it's not one of those medications that will do you harm if you don't take it right away. So
right.
It's a short-lived medication. That weekend I realized how clouded my head is on the medication, even though I can focus more on certain things. I had so much when not taking it, I started experiencing things that I hadn't been experiencing, and now I'm realizing that it was probably because of this medication. So I actually feel better not taking it at this point. So as long as I can figure out that focus without the medication, I feel like I'm safe going that way. So.
And I think that it's really important because you know your body very well. And, I read Amanda's comment here too. Everybody, obviously, you know your body very well. If a medication works for you, that's what's most important to you. I feel that there are many natural, I don't want to say remedies, but there's a book that I know there's a natural remedies for, metaphysical and holistic ways. I have a book on it. Obviously, there are more ways, it's just one book. But I think that it's really important, first off, that if you're on a medication and it's helping you, honor that. Absolutely. But I also feel like if you feel that you are like what you were explaining, Chad, if you're being clouded, if you feel like it's not necessarily helping you or it's making you feel like that zombie that I had said before, it's maybe something to reconsider and really ask yourself, okay, is this truly what I'm getting? For example, anxiety. Am I an empath, and is this what's really coming down on me? Are there other things happening that if I learn to control that, can I get off of the anxiety medication, and how will I feel afterwards? So I am a big advocate of honoring yourself, honoring your physical body, spiritual, every etherical body, everything that you have.
Right.
You know your body very well. And that's kind of where I'm at. With it's a give or take sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Sorry, guys, I distracted I almost got kid bombed. So we're usually done by now, and they expect to come in. So,
okay.
Sorry.
So, does anybody else
Enjoy.
have any questions? Because I don't want to cut anybody off. John, we'd love to definitely have you back again because I think we could go on for another hour or two at this rate.
Yeah.
True.
Um,
Well, John, I have one, and I this is something for me. And when someone passes, people are left behind, right? And I often hear, how someone wishes they could have had closure with that person. There's something left open. And when someone passes, it's the same, whatever that is open on their end as well. And, I think you're the right person to ask this question of, because it's been with me for a while. And it is, do you think the dead can find closure with the living?
In the short, yes. What I will say is every loved one that each one of us loses, they will not leave us in a spiritual sense. It's not always going to be, Aunt Sue's just hanging out over there in the corner while I'm sleeping. It's not like that. Metaphorically, we always talk about, your loved ones are always with you. Your loved ones are, they're there to support you. They're there to they're there to be by your side. A lot of times it comes down to, you will see those signs, symbols, and omens from them. And luckily, and I might get emotional, so bear with me here.
We do
from
that.
From a human aspect, when my aunt, she had a stroke when I was younger, not to get too personal. And she knew that her time wasn't going to be very long. She told me in specific that, I remember this conversation. She pulled me out. She was sitting outside on her porch, and I sat down. We were talking about things. We were talking about life. And I was like 15 at the time. She said to me, she stopped and she looked at me and she said, "When I go, you know that I will always be with you. If you see a cardinal," which to me is, a lot of people take cardinals as generic. But she said, "And if you ever doubt that it's me, look for the blue jay." It's like, okay. Obviously, cardinals and blue jays, they're two opposite streams. 2 years ago, we moved into this house that I'm living in now. At the old house, we would sometimes see cardinals, what have you. Every time I see a cardinal here, there's always a blue jay. Every time.
Interesting.
And it makes me stop and think, is this really you? And I sit there and I question it, because I'm like, okay, on an intuitive level, you think that I would be able to pick up on, like, oh, well, there's my Aunt Vicky. Like, I would be able to pick up on her real simple and easy. But a lot of times, think about it like this. Sometimes if you are so adamant on wanting to receive any sort of sign, symbol, or omen, or anything like this from a specific loved one, sometimes we get hyper focused in on it that we sometimes miss other sign, symbols, and omens. They will reach out to you from the other side through these sign, symbols, and omens. She was very blunt. She very well said, the cardinal with the blue jay. A lot of other things, like I joke around to my friends, she's the peanut butter aunt. If anybody else is watching, she is the peanut butter aunt that I always talk about. She was obsessed with peanut butter. It is what it is. But, you have those sorts of experiences. And a lot of times when it comes down to, like, okay, we had the holidays not too long ago. Family traditions, it brings up that raw emotion. It brings up us missing, our loved ones on, we used to do this together. And then you sit there and you think, and sometimes, it makes you sad and this and the other. If you think that those loved ones aren't with you at that time, you are mistaken.
Right.
Because you will experience different things on different levels. And our job as mediums is to take the person from mourning the loss of their loved one to remembering who they once were. Now, while I can get emotional about her, do I always get emotional whenever I think about, her and, her paintings and this and the other? No. I'm able to honor her by doing some of the things that I do, those family traditions, if you will.
Right.
Your loved ones will sit with you at your spiritual table. This is another meditation that I was very fortunate to give in her class as well, is that you sit down at the head of a table, you ask your guides to come in, and then you ask for anyone who is an angel for you, family member who's wanting to come in and sit down at that table with you. That's your spiritual team. And to experience it is a very beautiful moment on an intuitive level. But at the core of it, to answer your question, yes.
Now I'm going to show something here. So I promise this was not a setup.
Okay.
There's last comment.
Keep getting for you. The answer is yes. Stop overthinking it. Okay, I know exactly what. I do not know who them are. Okay, I think that makes sense. I think this is an it. Yeah, I mean, there you go. I was trying to think like the them part.
Don't overthink it, John.
Don't overthink it.
I know, right?
You said that, right? Don't overthink it.
There are certain projects that are in the works that have a lot of trouble with. So that makes sense. So thank you, Heather.
So tying into what you said, I went to a gallery reading last weekend, not this weekend, but last weekend. And one of the things that he came through with was the more fondly you hold memories of your ones who have passed, the easier it is for them to come to you. And, remember the good times, remember, that will allow them to make that connection back to you.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I think it ties into what you were saying. And some of the wording that you used was the exact wording that he had used. And it was just like, there's a connection, like there's some sort of connection there. So,
and and this is one thing that I will say, for those watching tonight and those who watch, the replay later on, a lot of times when I do like these sort of interviews, normally I'm, of course with Jody's show, I'm always the one asking questions and I'm always doing stuff like that.
right.
But when I go into an interview or I go into one of these shows where, I'm in the hot seat now. A lot of times I channel. A lot of times I allow them to speak. I allow my guides to kind of just let, things go. And so one thing I always say is no matter, even if because I used to do live mini mediumship readings, which this is a little hint, they might be coming back. At the end of those shows, I used to say, even if you didn't receive a reading, if any of the information that was inadvertently, if a reading was for somebody else, but you connected with that information, you connected and you felt that information, you felt it here, you were also meant to hear that same message. And so for anyone watching, live, I hope that at the end, one of the biggest things that I will always be an advocate on teaching everybody is honoring yourself and honoring who you are, where you come from, understanding what you have been through, being proud of who you are, and saying, you know what, I'm a badass person. Can we say that on here? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You've said worse. Don't worry.
Okay.
I've said worse. I've said worse. Jed, never.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm trying to be respectful, but I'm a badass person. I have a lot that I have to offer. I have a heart of gold. I need to stop being so hard on myself. And I'm all right. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you got to pay attention to that.
So, one last thing from Heather.
Okay. That makes sense.
So,
That makes perfect sense. Thank you, Heather.
So we should probably wrap it up. Like I said, we could go on for a while, but you know, this way you have to come back on because there's so much more to say.
Right.
So, so John, Thursday nights you're on with
Jody.
Jody Nettles.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Is it 8 o'clock? Crossroads.
It's between 8 to 9. Usually it's around 8:30. I help her co-host the show some nights. This coming Thursday we actually have Sarah Lemos coming on. So it'll be a cool night. We'll talk about mediumship as well. We'll talk about her experiences on, the couple of different shows that she's been on, and all of what she's been up to, because she's actually been working with Scotty on TikTok. I think they had a live this evening, either doing readings or something going on, but she'll be on Thursday, so it'll be fun. I think that is also at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Perfect. I'm going to put this slide up. This is where you're going to be. Some of the places what you've got scheduled for the year so far, right?
Yes.
At this point?
Yes.
Except we have one addition that we're going to throw in here. But go ahead and go through this.
So my next event, obviously, is this coming weekend in Milton, PA. It's at the Shoe Factory. It's the Dark Arts and Oddities Festival. If you're into horror, you really if you're able to make it to this event, it's a Friday and Saturday event. Friday it's from 4 to 9. Excuse me, and then Saturday it's from 10 to 5.
Okay.
Last year it was one of the most fun events out of the entire year. It was so cool. So I'll be set up. I'll be doing readings, I know for sure, on Saturday. But I also will have my eerie entities. I'll also have some metaphysical things, some books that I have, and so on. And then, after that, it's just the Awake Metaphysical Fair, one of my other favorite events, happening in Martinsburg, West Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to shout out the Comic-Con that you organized in Hershey.
Yes.
I got up to that last year. That was fun. You had a great paranormal panel there.
Thank you.
I'm planning on getting up there again this year. So looking forward to that. And then we're going to announce it here, October 12th. John is going to join us at Booby's Brewery for the investigation. So that'll be an interesting evening because John has never been there, as far as I know. You don't know anything about it.
Nope.
So it'll be a fun evening for sure. So,
yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, definitely. So going through some of our other stuff, here's our upcoming investigations through June. February 24th is oversold from what I believe.
Yep.
So that's great. We're glad, that's helping the brewery out. Plenty of other dates there. May 11th, we're at Red Mill. That's always a fun one. Paranormal investigation and campfire out at the old Red Mill. Have you been there, John? You familiar?
No, but that sounds fun.
Come join us.
Yeah. Tickets are available for the brewery ones at boobiesbrewery.com. While I'm saying that, John, can you put your website in the chat so people can get that? Okay.
Absolutely.
And then our upcoming shows, the February 6th, John Covey's going to be here.
Get out.
And let's see, next week is Champ. February 20th, I'm working on Hauntings of the White House. Jamie, what's the one on the 27th?
Come on, dude. You can do this.
No, I can't. Wendigo.
Yes.
A Wendigo. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Did you guys watch the documentary on Discovery Plus about the Wendigo?
I'm aware of it, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Please. Oh my gosh. It is so cool.
Okay. I'm making myself.
It seems kind of gimmicky, but it seems gimmicky, but it's cool. Watch it.
So, and then March 5th, we're going to have Tony and Shuri Rathman, who work with Ron and Lourdes on Staticom.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about Phelps Dodge Mining Hospital. The evidence that I've seen that they captured at this place shows some of the best shadow figure evidence that I've ever seen on video. And it's a couple minutes of these shadow figures moving around, and just the investigators are stunned. And it's one of those they've debunked, like, it's not shadows coming in from the outside. It's like, it's amazing. So looking forward to that one and talking to them. Let's see. And then our typical social medias. You found us on Facebook. Check us out on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I can find that link that I was talking about with the apparition, because if I can send that to you right now, I will do that.
Okay.
Cool.
So appreciate the shout out, Todd and Camilla.
Welcome as always. Thanks for joining us.
Well, Jamie, while he's looking for that, do you have any last minute thoughts to wrap this up tonight?
I feel like I don't know if you guys caught Saturday Night Live this past week, but Justin Timberlake was a musical guest, and of course Jimmy Fallon had to make a pop in and do the Barry Gibb talk show. An old school favorite of mine, and I feel like Robin Gibb here. You know, the answer. Do you have anything to add? And it's no, I don't. So no, I don't. It's fantastic, John. Thank you. This was obviously, we could still go. You know, like, and if we didn't have bedtimes, I'm old, so I have a bedtime.
Right.
You know, so I would say we could go for a couple more hours probably. So I look forward to having you back.
Yeah.
Your insight and you know, thank you for all you've done to the field as well. You know, it is extraordinary to see the future of our industry, if you will, in such good hands, and I appreciate that. Every time, you know, we get a chance to meet someone who has the passion, drive, and dedication that's going to carry us forward and further. I really have to say thank you and appreciate it. You know, stop and say appreciation for it. So keep up the good work.
Yep.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
John, you sent me that link. Was that to share, or is that to?
If you like it, I don't know if you're able to pull it up right now. I mean, if you wanted to share it, you could.
How long are we?
I don't remember how long the video is. You can always, you know, you feel free to post it. It looks like it's just a minute and a half.
Yeah, we got another minute and a half, right, Jamie?
Just sleep, man. It's all good.
I feel that. So to give preface on this, for those who didn't watch, you know, earlier, this was that Snyder's farmhouse that I talked about. This is a surveillance where you see the apparition right at the stairs.
All right, let's see here. Wow.
So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
There's definitely something there. Oh, hold on.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a skeptic. Okay, and I know that's not unusual in the field, but I appreciate this because it looks cool.
Yeah.
But I think I need to see a little bit more, something different than an angle, and I wish there would be like an outside camera, the second angle kind of thing. It looks like a person, no doubt about it. Absolutely. And, I'm grateful to see it twice because I was looking at the stamp to see if there was an adjustment to the time at all or anything. And, there's no loop there. There's no jump. So unless somebody's really good at editing, which I doubt that's the case. I'm not accusing him.
I'll tell you, he's tech savvy, but I don't think he's that tech savvy.
Yeah. I mean, it would take an effort to doctor that kind of stuff, but that's cool. That is really cool. Not as I was expecting it either. I had this different mental vision in your description than that, so that is
right
than I thought it was going to be, too. So pretty compelling. You can't argue that. It's cool.
So
yeah, it'd be cool to get back in there, but in due time.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, it is late. It's 10:30. So let's roll the outro, and we'll see everybody next week. John, thanks again so much. Hang out for a few minutes till we get through this outro, and we'll catch up on the other side. All right.
Cool. Everybody.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Yep.